6:30, so the Board of Trustees of Lamar Consolidated Independent School District is called in order. This is our board workshop being held on June 18, 2019. We have a quorum, if everybody may get back safely. And we're going to review our agenda items for our regular board meeting. Yes.
We hit our buttons.
Mine's opposite. Okay, is everybody on? Are we all on? Okay. Now it's working. Okay, you want me to start over? Anyway, we will review the agenda items, and remember this is a workshop where if you have a question concerning a specific agenda item, feel free to let us know and ask questions. All right, Dr. Randall?
Yes, Madam President. The first item is that we ask the board to approve the interagency program agreement between Lamar Consolidated and the Behavioral Treatment and Training Center, Texana Center, for the 2019-2020 school year. Yes, ma'am.
Are these all with federal funding? On 22, it says special education contact hours and federal special education funds supporting services. Is that 100% federal funding?
From your federal funds.
Right, it's all used for special education students. Unless they're in inclusion classrooms, then the funds can be used in that way as well.
Okay, and then, actually 2 questions. It was talking about the length of stay at your facilities, usually 3 to 6 months.
Right.
Where do they go after that?
Those students are placed by CPS, so we don't have any control over their locations.
Okay, we don't do it. Okay. All right, thank you.
The next item, we ask the board to approve the interagency program agreement between Lamar Consolidated and Richmond State Supported Living Center for the 2019-2020 school year. The next item, we ask the Board of Trustees to approve the interlocal cooperative agreement with Equal Opportunity Schools and in the amount of $22,000 and authorize the superintendent to execute the agreement. And there were a number of questions that were asked about Equal Opportunity Schools, so we have a presentation of a little bit of an overview of the program, as well as responding to the questions that were asked at the previous board meeting.
Good evening. We're going to begin an orientation of Equal Opportunity Schools. And to begin, we want to launch the information session with a video that was created a couple of years ago.
We have a really, really diverse student population. We've got kids who have immigrant parents. Some of them are immigrants themselves. We have students who come from every possible religious background, ethnic background.
I've got so many seniors this year, they'll be the first one graduating high school. You know, and then just the thought of going to college is really out there.
I was born in Houston. My mother was born in El Salvador. She did not graduate high school. I would be the first in my family to graduate high school and go to college.
When we started looking at the data, we realized that we truly had some kids who were lost, who were not in our AP program, who should have been. Those gaps were particular to minority students and students in poverty.
I felt like I just didn't belong in AP classes.
So we have x squared plus 2x delta x plus...
I was scared I wasn't going to be prepared for them and how much homework it was going to be.
Too fast and too collegey, but yet these kids had the same test scores as the kids sitting in our current AP classes. And so they showed that they had the intelligence to do so. They had the work ethic. They were making high grades in other classes. We needed to tell them, this is something that's available to you.
When they're encouraged to go ahead and take these classes, it just changes them. It changes their whole outlook, and then it makes them realize, I can go ahead and move on.
Almost all our teachers here always want everyone to be involved in AP classes because I know everyone can do better.
Miss McCain had mentioned me by name that I should be in it, and I thought that was like the coolest thing. I was like, wow, she said me.
She looked at my grades and she saw I had A's in like every academic class, and she was like, what about AP? And I was like, What about AP? I didn't know anything about it.
It made me feel good because I was like, hey, if you believe me like that, I should believe myself.
I truly, truly believe this is how we will change the educational future for these students, is by getting students out of cycles of poverty, out of cycles of parents who weren't educated, grandparents who weren't educated, to make sure these students have the opportunities that all of our other students in AP classes have known all along.
So we begin to look at the EOS mission. It is to ensure that all students have the opportunity to succeed in a challenging high school course with a focus on our advanced placement offerings. The identification and enrollment helps our leaders to identify and enroll students who can succeed in advanced placement but are not yet enrolled in AP for systemic reasons related to race and or socioeconomic status. There are three particular objectives. One is to fully close or maintain closure of race and income participation gaps in advanced placement and or AP, when you see AP, by the fall of 2020. Raise AP performance by the spring of 2021 as measured by the AP passing rate, and develop systems and structures for the district in order to improve instruction and sustain these results in future years, catalyzing a higher sense of what's possible for our missing students and enabling further increases in college readiness and closure of opportunity and the achievement gaps. Why is this important? It is important to Texas. In 2015, there was an initiative that was created called 60 by 30. The overreaching goal for the state of Texas is by 2030, at least 60% of Texans aged 25 to 34 will have a certificate and or degree. It's hard to believe that's almost just in 10 years. There's a gap currently as we look at national statistics. There's a gap for underrepresented students in college completion. And again, this is nationally, but our white students from 20 to 21, or adults 20 to 29, have attained a bachelor's degree, 63% Asian Americans. When you compare that, there is a large gap between our African American population at 21 and our Hispanic population at 16%. However, AP, again, advanced placement, can help dramatically reduce this gap. According to the research, by participating in an AP course, students are 10 to 20% more likely to complete college. Also, AP can help dramatically reduce this gap because 26 to 34% by passing an AP exam are more likely to complete college. So what does our data show at Lamar CISD? When you begin to look at our data trends, when we began the program in 15-16, this is our white and Asian population compared to our Hispanic population. We had 103 students in an AP class in 11th and 12th grade. This next school year in 1920, we're looking at 1,242. Yes, from 103 to looking at course requests for next year, 1,242. For our Hispanic students, we began with 205 to an increase of 984 when we look at our course requests for 1920. When you look at our African American population compared to our white and Asian student groups, in beginning, again, at 103 to 1,242, you compare our African American participation in 14-15, it was 52, and in next year's course request, we are at 346. When you begin to look at income levels, when you look at low income, we began at about 192 when we began the program. We are at 948 in low income, and then at 190 in 15-16 to 1,633. You can also see the bar between 15-16 enrollments. It is categorized in white Asian population divided in medium income, low income, our Hispanic population, and medium, high income, low income. as well as our African American, medium, high income to low income, and then as well as additional races and multiracial. And then you see the overall chart change in the right side of the graph. Dual credit enrollment is also increasing. As we began in 3 years ago, in 2017, we had 4 African American students participating in dual enrollment or dual credit programs. We are now looking at the course requests at 232, from 1 Asian population to 127, from 37 to 314 for our Hispanic population, and from 9 to 420, and in our other category, 4 to 32, and then economically disadvantaged at 27 to 292. This is looking at just all of AP classes, as well as dual credit classes, as well as all of them combined, to show the numbers when you compare all of those different programs between our white, low income, and high income, of the percentage that are taking highly more advanced classes, as well as our Hispanic, Latino, medium, low income, African American, medium, and low income, as well as additional races and multiracial. When you're looking at that, look at the total number. The total number, again, is all that are participating in AP, dual credit, and or both. They're taking both AP classes as well as dual credit classes. This is our AP performance history from 2008 to 2018. As we begin to look at the percentages, our enrollment across the district has increased throughout the district, but when we began to look at 2015, we provided 2,571 exams, and we have increased that number to 4,468. 44% of the 4,468 have made a 3, 4, or 5, and the total number of exams of Texas is documented, and what the performance rate in Texas as well as globally, meaning throughout the world and throughout the United States. This document here from the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board also shows the possible savings for our children as well. So when you look at, we had 1,983 students who have received a 3, 4, and 5, and according to the state law, public institutions, if they receive a 3, 4, and 5, those institutions have to provide some type of college credit. When you multiply that by $995, that is a savings of $1,973,085. And savings compared to last year at 217,554 to 296,606. So again, it is a cost savings for our students here in Lamar CISD. The EOS model begins with an orientation, a welcome, the qualitative and quantitative survey, which you guys have copies of in your packet as well. We review, and the team reviews the data, analyzes the data, creates outreach lists with that information, and then plans for sustainability with student and staff, with the committee for student success, and then begin to look at enrollment and student schedules and summer programming for the next school next school year as well. So, why many of our students are overlooked. When you look at original or traditional indicators of who would be eligible for an advanced placement class, you would look at AP potential, which is usually utilizing PSAT information. 80% of the kids that are identified through the EOS program would have been missed. So those indicators do not tell the whole story of a child. The surveys provide us insight to a student's growth mindset, their grit and focus, community leadership, purpose for learning, and academic identity. What do they help with? They help students overcome obstacles, are teachable and learnable. These are not reflected in standardized testing and are avenues for engagement and belonging. So we utilize this information as student outreach tools to create the student lists, the student outreach, strategies and inform also at the classroom level of the support strategies that are needed for all of our kids to be successful. This is an example of a student insight card. This is not a real student, but this is an example. When you begin to look at this just being test scores and what traditionally has been utilized to put students in an AP class, there is a set of additional information from the mindsets I mentioned earlier, the student comments, the reported barriers, and their particular interest. These are two examples of real-life children, one being at George Ranch High School, who had 4 staff advocates as well, and provides us additional information on whether or not they would be able to participate or willing to also participate in an advanced placement class. This is also a student from Foster High School. Again, that is 5 student staff advocates. Also, they're advocating with a lot of additional information that help us create these outreach lists for these children. So, to begin a little bit from an outreach perspective, I'm going to have 3 of our principals come up and join me to begin to share the slide on what they've done to outreach to their community. To begin, that would be Mr. Jerry Kipping from Foster High School.
If we have a question about something you've already gone over, do we ask it now, or can we, what's the best way to do that?
You can.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. On page 9 of the presentation, it has the AP program, and this may be in the other questions you asked already broken down, but it doesn't have the performance broken down the same way it has all the other diagrams by category. So I'm wondering, do we have that information on who's passing? It gives totals and averages, but who's actually passing?
Yes.
From those groups?
Yes, that should be in the set of questions from
That's in the other
additional
set.
questions in the board workshop and the board meeting. There should be some data within there that is stating.
And these other pages?
Per,
Mhm.
yes,
Okay.
per school.
Perfect.
Specifically.
Okay.
Mr. Kippen.
Good evening, Dr. Randall, Board of Trustees. One of the great things that comes with EOS is an outreach liaison. And Dolores Camano, after our information is disaggregated and we've done course selections, we look at where we can identify kids who were missing through them not signing up for a course selection. We were very, very successful with our African American population, where we almost have no gap at all. But where we still struggle is with our Hispanic population. And so one of the ideas that we brainstormed was going to a local church where many of our Hispanic students were actually attending. And I actually met with the priest of the church. And what you are looking at is what he put into his church bulletin, inviting his congregation of students at Foster High School to attend a parent night. That parent night took place in April, and we actually, because of our outreach to the church, had 60 families there that particular evening. We had a presentation that was in both English and in Spanish, and we actually had a Hispanic businessman who a teacher had outreached to him taking AP classes when he was in high school, and he spoke to the families that particular evening. We also had an AP ambassadors, which are some of our current AP students that were part of the community, actually spoke to the families that night about having their children participate in AP classes. We served refreshments, and in that 60 families, we were able to recruit another 20 to 30% of that particular group to come into an AP class that day.
Good evening, Dr. Randall, members of the Board of Trustees. I'm Andre Osage, the proud principal at Terry High School. One of the rich things that we get from the EOS is the outreach list that is generated from the survey that our students take. Once we receive the outreach list, then we begin to create a congratulatory letter. And we send out this letter to all of our students that are on the outreach list. We send it out in English, and we also send it out in Spanish. We are very calculated when it comes to the timing of sending out these letters. We send it out very close to the holidays, very close to the Christmas holidays, so that our students could have it while they celebrate the holidays. And we've had parents to report that they actually put this letter on their refrigerator so that when family members come in, they could actually see that their students have been identified as having the potential to be successful in the AP exam, in the AP course, and also in taking advanced placement program. Another thing that we do is that we host a huge assembly for all of our students just to celebrate them. And we'll send out this very special ticket. It is personalized to every student, and we put their name on it, and we call them to an assembly in our LGI, and we have the band there to play for them. We have our cheerleaders there, and it is a big deal. To these students, for most of them, this is the very first time that they have been recognized. And they come in, once they receive this ticket in class, they come in, we scan them in. The ticket actually looks like it's a movie ticket, so as they're coming in, we're scanning them in. So we make it a big deal to them. And we talk to them about the potential that they have in being successful in the AP classes and also in taking advanced placement coursework. As a matter of fact, we have had parents to also come in and join in this assembly. I will tell you that personally, Terry High School was one of the pioneers to have this relationship with EOS, and our AP enrollment has gone up significantly. When I started at Terry High School 3 years ago, we were only using a couple of classrooms to test for the AP exam in May. Last year, we had grown so much to where we had to close our performance gym the 2 weeks in the month of May just to administer the AP exam. This year, not only did we have to close our gym, but we had to close our gym and also a wing in the building just to administer the AP exam. So it just shows the significant growth that we've experienced just by having this AP outreach list to help us identify our students, and then us making a very conscious effort going after and trying to recruit these students and letting them know that they have the potential to be successful in advanced placement coursework. Thank you.
And last.
So good evening, Dr. Randall and school board members. I'm Dr. Kay Williams, principal of Lamar Consolidated High School. So once we use all of the tools that EOS provides, we had a kickoff to invite kids to our AP-DC camp. And so what we did was we created our own band, and we met in the auditorium. It was a VIP party only, so you had to have a VIP ticket to get to the party. We used community members and organizations to provide food, so we had like a whole luncheon for these guys, and it was really about students hearing from other AP students about what it means to take AP. And then we asked them to come to our summer camp. And what the summer camp provides for our students is a way to be able to connect to students who are already in AP classes, connect with their teachers prior to the school year. Because what we found at Lamar is we were recruiting a lot of kids, and then they would get scared right before school started and not want to go into the AP classes for whatever reasons. So we get them to connect with their teachers, we get them to connect with other students, we get them to connect with kids who were first-time AP takers, and this is their second year in AP classes. And so it's really using the AP ambassadors to get kids to be able to buy in with their teachers and connect. It also helps our teachers at Lamar High School because they have to plan this summer camp, and it's cross-curricular. Our theme this year was pandemics, and they went glamping last week, and it was a shock to many of our student systems because they have never left Rosenberg, many of them, and so there they were camping at one of the state forests in huts, no Wi-Fi, which was shocking, and they had to do many different assignments to work on the pandemics. And so it really helps with all the different things that are identified as far as being successful in AP classes. For instance, like, rigor, making sure that you are problem solving, that you can hypothesize, that you can summarize. That is like part of the things that they have to do in the AP camp. It's like a big, massive treasure hunt. And for our students, it gives them real-world experiences that they don't have. This year at Lamar High School, we had a 300% increase in students taking AP tests. We had 903 tests administered at Lamar High, which is the most ever. And we just finished week 1 of AP Camp. We'll have 2 more weeks of it. And it's really a time where kids can just make that connection, feel like they belong, and that, it's something that they're very capable of. And it gives our teachers an opportunity to really hone in on their skills as well in the classroom and work with our veteran AP teachers so we can grow our young teachers to be working in AP as well. Thank you.
Lastly, just as we close out this part of the presentation and just the connections to our strategic plan, when you begin to look at the evolving the student learning experience, expanding available resources to provide learning that is personalized to each student's interests and abilities in order to eliminate gaps in achievement, we believe that EOS helps support that mission. Also, in equipping students with knowledge and skills to succeed in a changing world, particularly in increasing students, families, and community members' awareness of and access to all available academic programs. We also help to feel that the program will also support that endeavor as well. Lastly, this really is the last thing, is state accountability. High school, we're looking at, in state accountability for a high school, it's not 100% a STAR. And so 40% of the assessment data and the accountability data is based upon CCMR data. And so when you look at CCMR data, these are the indicators for every graduating student. They need to meet one of these areas to be considered college ready and or career ready, earn industry certification, be admitted to a post-secondary industry certification program, as well, or not as well, but or intent to enlist in the United States Armed Forces. And so once again, 40% of our accountability system is based upon how our students are CCMR'd, is kind of the vernacular that is being used nowadays, CCMR'd. So, any questions?
I guess I have one. When you say how many students are taking the test, what's the percentage of them being able to pass with it? I know you saw the data on there, but like of this year.
What we're looking at from 2018, we won't know about what this year's data looks like until the July test scores come back for AP. But currently, right now, if you look at 2018, I believe it's at 44%. The state in general is at about 48% right now.
Okay, so you'll present those scores and
yes, I can present those scores. We do have those in your board folder that we provided that are per school, and some information that was requested.
Okay. Any other?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. This was a great presentation. I'm glad we have a day to go over it, look over it again. I appreciate all of especially the numbers that are percentages. Thank you very much. My question is, we're getting a lot of the students into the AP program to college ready, but how many of these students what happens to when they don't have the money to go to college? Of these students, we're putting a lot of effort and encourage them to do it, but what is there available for them when they're seniors and they're trying to figure out, how am I going to pay for this?
Our college career facilitators that are at every high school campus also are working with our kids to identify scholarship opportunities, as well as our school counselors. And so there's a lot of money out there for students to apply for. And also federal Pell Grant, grants that can help them go to school as well.
Is there any type of accountability of students in the last 3 to 4 years that we could get to see how many were able to take advantage of that?
Specifically, what are,
just
for clarity?
Go to you and they say, I can't afford to go to college 3 years ago. Did that student get a scholarship and go on to college and finish?
We know that EOS does not collect that information. We know that as we begin to 214 to 215 data, and we're looking at today, we have information of our students going and abroad, where they're going. but going down to the student-specific level would take a little bit more time to try to determine what we would need to do for next steps to gather that information.
And it's a bigger challenge getting the data of the kids who graduated from college. We can share the ones that are basically, our college career facilitators have assisted with getting scholarships and that type of thing. But it's a little harder to get the kids to take and give back to us the fact that they've graduated from college. The other thing is that when they score 3 or better, then they don't have to pay for that course. So that kid that is challenged economically, it's an incentive for them to do well on the AP exam, because then that is one course that their families don't have to pay for.
And that, again, is highlighted in this page in regard to 3, 4, and 5 of the estimate of savings, again, from Texas Higher Ed Coordinating Board to provide some savings.
I saw that, and I said, savings to the student, I get that, but still, how many receive the scholarships to continue on from us? I'd be interested in seeing that, or see how many scholarships.
So are you specifically asking then for specific percentage of scholarships per high school?
I guess I'm asking that, yes.
Okay.
I know it takes a lot of work and everything,
Yeah.
but I'd be curious to know just how many of those really could afford to go to college, or how did we help them with their scholarships?
I think in addition to that, though, majority of our students that are going to be applying for scholarships have taken an AP exam, and the students that they're going to be competing with have also taken AP exams at other schools. So they are definitely going to be at a disadvantage if they have not taken an AP course, because other students at other schools would have taken an AP course, and if they have not taken an AP course in high school, they're definitely not going.
They really don't have a chance.
They don't have a chance. They don't have a chance.
And do we find funds to help pay for them to take the AP test? They don't
Yes,
have to
ma'am.
pay for it,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
They're not paying.
Yes.
And where does that, is that a grant or?
Has come from what has originally been high school allotment funding.
I'll make one, just a comment, I was looking at math. On 2015, where you say the savings, the number of exams, 846, estimated savings is 1,171,000. But then, where it's supposed to be an increase, it shows a decrease of 196.
Correct.
You see, when you look, I mean, it was 210 savings, and then the following year, it's 196, and then it goes to 287.
Correct. And that is just, again, if it was a pattern as far as 2
I'm not
years,
really-
it
it
could be an
doesn't matter,
anomaly within the data. I don't have the, I guess, a direct response to that particular information.
And I don't really expect it, I just noticed the discrepancy, and
Yeah.
I haven't, for 17?
Keep in mind, all of this is being based on the number of, every one of those numbers represents an AP exam that the kids took. And some kids take one, some kids take multiple ones. There are others that may be taking the AP course and choose not to take the exam. So,
I have 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
Still, and here's my biggest issue is, it seems like we're selling our district short, because everybody who I've met in the last couple of months is grade A professional. So, and you did address that a little bit in the presentation, what this company is doing for us. What is this company doing for us that we still cannot do? They're crunching numbers, and they're helping you identify them, but you guys are doing the hard work. You guys are getting them to the test. You guys are doing the outreach and the marketing to the Spanish-speaking church to get the families there, and you're providing the meals and the travel reimbursement. Those 2 issues, how long is EOS, do you see EOS needing to be involved? And what is the travel reimbursement per school year?
I have the travel reimbursement is documented in those responses as well. We know that was a conversation, as well as a projected plan of what, from partnering school districts as well with EOS. I can tell you, as they look at sustainability, a lot of times they predict that to be at about 6 to 8 years. Currently, we're in a Phase 1 and 2. We do believe that we will be able to move to a Phase 3 moving into next year. It's possible, not guaranteed, in the equity labs, and then support. The information that is being provided to us is the data sets that are proprietary to EOS as far as the survey information, the generating. And so our district coordinator, or the champion that is working with that, is working with our staff to help us identify kids and to move that work forward and that assistance. In Phase 3 and then in Phase 4, that person is pulled away. And so the goal overall is always to be able to sustain this work. And we also have a new director of college career readiness that will be coming on board, hopefully beginning in, soon, here in the next couple of months. We've posted, we'll begin interviews, who will also help us to lead those efforts.
I think that on page 38, that's what it says, develop systems and structures for the district to sustain and improve upon. It says in future years, it just doesn't say how many years.
Right.
Future years could be a long time.
They document on that document 6 to 8 years is they do, I think it's the last paragraph at the very end. Yeah. What they've seen traditionally.
And I think some of that information is on this sheet.
Yes.
That's in your packet, that outlines everything. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you so much for your hard work. I know
Thank
this
you.
took some time to get together, and we're so proud of the hard work of our principals.
Yes, yes, give them a round. Good job.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right, I think we can move forward.
Next item on the agenda is that we ask the Board of Trustees to approve a partnership agreement with Memorandum of Understanding with Texas A&M University for Advanced Texas Program with Lamar CISD. This is, you were asking about, and she mentioned college career facilitators. This is an agreement that we have with Texas A&M where they provide an individual that serves as a college career facilitator for Terry High School because they qualify for it.
About that. So how do they qualify for it?
They're being economically disadvantaged, and a high percentage of those, and A&M identifies schools across the state of Texas, and if they fit that criteria, they will come and offer an opportunity for you to establish an MOU with them. And so when we have college career facilitators at each one of our campuses, we actually were fulfilling that at Terry High School with a Texas A&M Advanced Texas individual.
That's really interesting to me, though, because we have a local, well, not local, we have a state and in-state university helping us identify these students. But then the agenda item before that, we're hiring an out-of-state company and paying consultants to come in.
That's not
help with the advanced placement courses.
No, that's not what it is. They help with filling out applications, helping students to understand about colleges and what is expected of them because they're newly graduates from the university. They're not out identifying kids for AP courses. We're talking about something totally different. We have college career facilitators on our campuses that begin to identify kids when they come in as a freshman, and they begin to talk to those kids about scholarships, how to fill them out, connecting with parents about FAFSAs and everything that typically parents have a challenge doing because they just don't know how to go through all the paperwork. And so our college career facilitators on each campus, their responsibility is helping them to work through all of those paperwork and to get scholarships. We have had 4, I think it is, Gates Millennial Scholars, and until they could discontinue the program. And we were one of the highest number of a school district with the highest number of Gates Millennial Scholars in the state of Texas. A big part of that was because of our college career facilitators. That's what they focus on, and that's what this person is. They don't get involved with EOS. They get involved with assisting with identifying which college they want to go to. We have a program where if a kid has an interest in going to Cal State or going to Oklahoma University, I don't know why, but if that's someplace that they want to go to, they can literally go in and get all of the information for that university, all of the scholarships available, and then begin to complete the scholarships. And our college career facilitators assist them with that. And that's what this individual does.
This is for 2 years, correct? No.
Yes.
This covers 2 years, and it's 10,000. It says for each school year. On page 66, where at the very bottom, it says the purpose and description of the program evaluation. It says comprehensive compilation and analysis of direct outcomes. When I read that, I thought, well, that's kind of what EOS does. But you're saying it's not. It's scholarship.
We need to separate EOS from advise.
Okay.
It is not the same thing at all. And what they're talking about is taking a look at their program and how, because Texas A&M, in fact, they actually have a conference during the summer where they bring all of their advisors in and they train them and get them ready for coming back out to the campuses.
To me, it looks like it's just a plus for Terry to have that.
It is
EOS.
It is a plus. I will say that.
Thank you.
The next item, we ask that the Board of Trustees approve the memorandum of understanding between the Houston Galveston Institute Counseling and Lamar Consolidated for mental health services provided for students and families.
You okay? Yeah. All right. We're fine.
You're good? Okay.
I have one question on that.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Hunt.
On page 72, under client confidentiality and information exchange, says upon written request, LCISD social workers or school system officials / management will be able to obtain these records from HGI to sign release of information forms. Does that mean release of information form from the patient, either a student or staff member? Yes. Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute.
I have to get my thoughts together on this one.
Okay. I'll ask another question. How does the telecounseling work?
So students, there's a room at all the high schools that have the teleconferencing application where students can go with a counselor that they say they need some support, and so they need to have an area that is private, and so all our high school campuses has a designated area for students to go in and call the number to be able to have the telecommunication support.
Okay. And I'm sorry, my thoughts are kind of rambled, but I put, who referred the students to this group?
To be part of, to see the therapist?
Yes. From special ed or the?
It could be anyone, any student that has any anxiety risk factors showing any signs that they need other supports when it comes to this area. Parents could give this opportunity out and say, my student really needs to talk to someone. It's anyone who has a care and interest in the student to make sure that we get them what they need.
Okay. Then it says that we, on page 72, Lamar High School will have a designated full-time therapist. Is that at every high school?
So the full-time therapist is at Lamar High School, and then there's a full-time therapist at Terry High School as well. Yes.
And on page 73, where it talks about the cost.
Mm-hmm.
We share the cost of the full-time counselor at Terry High.
Yes, ma'am.
And pay the counselor directly. We pay half of that.
Yes, ma'am.
And then on the red track, we pay for all of it?
No, so that is the red track. That's the Terry High School. That's the actual payment we give for our part half of the pay of that therapist.
60,000
Yes, ma'am.
for one therapist?
For half of the therapist, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item, we ask the board to approve out-of-state travel for the Foster High School Choir to travel to Orlando, Florida.
Who gets to go to this?
Did I skip one?
Yeah, the Foster High School students travel to
Yeah, let's back up
Taiwan.
one step.
74.
Thank you, I'm sorry. The first one is that the Board of Trustees approve out-of-country travel for Foster High School students to travel to Dongjiang High School in Pingtung, Taiwan. And then
That was impressive.
Well, we've gone back and forth before.
and then the next one is
Who gets to go to that one?
where kids can actually, I'm sorry, I get the rolling.
The school, it's really kids that are interested in attending to go to Taiwan for a whole week. And it's an every other year program, so it's a partnership that we have with this particular school. And 1 year, it's every other year. So 1 year, Foster High School and this group of kids is going to Taiwan, and then the next year, the Taiwan kids are coming here. And so it's the kids within that particular high school that can attend.
So they just put it out to everybody, and so you can just kind of sign up? Okay, so you said it changes per school for different years?
Well, no, this is currently a
Only
program
Foster.
that's only offered at Foster.
And how come it's only offered at Foster?
I would have to get back to you
Because-
on the history of that.
Because we have a MOU with this particular group for Foster, and then we have Foshan for George Ranch, and they shared with George Ranch and Terry.
It's one of the next ones.
yes.
Okay, so that's, I had a question about
Yes.
that. Okay, so everybody can sign up, who can, I guess, pay for the trip?
No, we help assist those in paying for that.
Yeah, but
I
most
thought-
of it is incurred
Yeah,
by
most
the
of that, we
students.
assist the
And, we
teachers
support the
and
teachers.
with that, and then, yes, the kids have to come up with that funding.
That's what I'm saying, the kids pay for themselves, we
Yes.
pay for the chaperone?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I have a question. Last year, we went to a dinner that morning. My understanding is that the students that come here are from a very elite high school. It's not open to just any of their students.
I've not been to Foshan, so I cannot speak to whether it's elite or not elite.
I can because I did
Okay.
go.
Yeah.
And it's not elite from the standpoint of the students coming from wealthy families. It's elite from the standpoint of getting in.
Yeah.
And because when you get in, you literally go to school there, they have dorms and all of that. So it's not that the very wealthy are the ones that attend
And
the
I
school.
probably used
So-
the wrong word, but
Yes.
this is a.
But it is a very
school that they-
competitive school to get into.
And our students get to go to that particular school?
That's correct.
Yes.
They also visit other places while they're there. They don't just spend all of their time at that particular school, but they get a chance to get immersed into seeing a lot of the culture and that type of thing.
One question, it says that they spend 1 night in Taiwan and then 5 nights in Japan? Am I looking at it right? So, page 74?
In that area, yes.
Well, now that one I gotta go
Yeah,
back and
that's a-
check regarding the Japan one. Where are you seeing that?
Oh, it's
I have
the
a
last
feeling,
line.
yeah,
Last line
because
is
it's
the
being
first
confused with the
Oh,
nuclear
okay.
power plant.
Maybe it's
Okay.
just.
Yeah, it's being confused with
But
the
they stay
nuclear
in
power plant,
Taiwan
yes.
the entire time?
Yes.
Okay.
Taking the 4 trips together that are listed, I love the fact that they're going. But we're paying for the chaperones on 2, and we're not paying on the other 2. What happened to the other 2? Why are we paying for some and not all the trips? The chaperones I'm talking about.
Paying
Because on
for,
the Taiwan trip, we're paying $16,000, and on the George Ranch High School to China, we're paying $16,500 roughly. But on the other 2 trips listed, the foundations are covering the chaperone cost.
Yes. And we do have, this started with a MOU with Fort Bend County. And so we do, where they have a sister relationship with Foshan. And there are some foundations that do provide support, and then there are some that do not. And in those cases where they do not, then of course we have picked up, because we don't want to send the students over there without having appropriate
I
chaperones.
think he's talking about the next one, why we're not paying for the Foster High School choir, is that what you're?
Yeah, and the one after
Oh!
See, he's going to the next page without you.
Yeah.
That's where I was
Talking
getting
about the
confused,
four
I'm
together.
sorry.
The 4 trips
Because
together, we're going to
usually-
talk about
well,
under
I
number
can answer
6.
that.
A,
You
B,
go
C,
ahead
and
and
D.
answer it. I know what the answer is.
All right, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm
we moved,
single-minded.
he moved up to
This is
75.
just a point of clarification. I'm just trying to understand that.
So your question,
It's not a big point.
Well, let's,
Yeah, so I'm looking over everything here, and so my understanding is the question is why we're paying for chaperones for the international exchange program to Foshan, but not on the following information items after that.
Maybe the better question is, how can we get somebody else to pay for the chaperones on those 2 trips?
Right, well, I think to the initial question is, we do have sister city MOUs with Nanjing, with Foshan, and with Taiwan, and so we have an international exchange program that's been established. So we have money set aside each year to send teachers and students over to these countries and have them come back. So that's a district level program. After that, it looks like the out-of-state trips to, say, Orlando or other things are campus-led or club-led initiatives, and so that's the difference. So this one right here going to Taiwan is specifically a district partnership in collaboration with Fort Bend County and the Fort Bend Global Initiative, whereas the ones following are more at the campus level.
And not only that, most of these will have a rotation of every 3 years. They'll have an opportunity to take, and they raise funds in order to do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then how are the chaperones chosen?
For which one?
We'll go back to the Taiwan.
Okay.
I'm assuming the Japan, I don't know if they're the same, but how do you choose this? Like can people submit? I feel like I have a neighbor who went, she's a teacher at George Ranch High School, and I'm guessing I think she went to China, so I'm guessing it was.
I'm sure that it probably was this.
Okay, so how are the chaperones chosen?
We can get some more information on that, but it is a campus level decision.
Campus.
I mean,
Okay.
So when they have the information meetings and individuals are chosen for that, I know that the campus principals work, and so we set up the funding and the structure and the partnership, but then when you get to on the campus, the principal or the designee or the staff members who are going, they work that out, and it's a little bit different each campus, but I'm sure individuals interested have the opportunity, but we can find that out.
That's fine, I was just curious.
And in some instances, they may identify someone who's teaching Chinese, for example, not Chinese. Taiwanese or Mandarin. Thank you, I'll get it right here in a minute. And so, but they have an opportunity to express an interest, and then the campuses actually make the decisions about who goes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
She's talking about chaperones, it just dawned on me, the students, are these mostly like juniors and seniors, or do the freshmen and sophomores, is there any distinguish as far as how old they are, or what grade?
majority of them are, I believe, upperclassmen, but I do not know if there is a cutoff for the underclassmen.
We've had underclassmen attend in the past.
But majority are older students, and I think that is parent comfort as well, because they are going out of the country.
I remember my son,
Yeah.
when he had gone to another, it was a choir, but he was old enough to really understand why he was there, and he took everything in. And some students are not ready for that.
Yeah. And that's a parent decision for them. The parent is involved in that decision and the waivers and that, but it's an incredible experience for our kids. And I know that our Board of Trustees is always invited to go to their send-off dinner. It is just amazing to hear the presentations from the kids and hear about their impact and their stories. Really is for some a life-changing moment, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Continue.
So are we on page 76?
Yes.
All right. That the Board of Trustees approve out-of-country travel for Foster High School students and staff to travel to Japan for the NEA Hashikiya for Future Scientist Conference. It didn't work on that one, so.
Okay.
The next item, we ask that the Board of Trustees approve out-of-country travel for George Ranch and B.F. Terry students to travel to Foshan. That's what we were talking about a little earlier.
All right.
Okay. Next item, we ask the board to approve the submission of a low attendance day waiver to the agency for Wednesday, May 8th, 2019. This was, if you remember before, we actually called the day, and we have an opportunity to at least ask for them to waive that, which would keep from having a negative impact on attendance. And that's what this is. The next item, we ask the board to approve the On-Ramps College Algebra course for the 2019-2020 school year. And what we typically do is every course that we add, we come to the board for approval. And on the second page, you can see the courses that have already been approved.
Is that at all campuses or all the high schools?
The reason we're at it is because teachers have to be formally trained in on-ramps, and so the teacher has to, the campus has to have a teacher that is trained through on-ramps to offer that course.
So depending on?
The teacher training, yes.
It's dependent on student enrollment, student interest as well. And so the student interest would drive the offerings at the campus level.
Okay.
And then that is coupled with also that the teacher has to attend a training at UT for a 2-week period for the first time.
Okay. I think we talked about that.
Yeah.
So why are we approving, this is not in place yet?
No.
We haven't had a teacher go through the training yet until
We did
this
all
year.
these other
Okay.
ones first.
Step one.
Yep.
So the students are told first,
Yeah, how do you know?
then you offer it, and then you train.
So the way we do it is we look at teachers who meet qualifications of the on-ramps, which is having a teacher background in a certain content area, and seeing if they're interested in participating in the 10-day-long program training throughout the summer. They have to attend that training to then even allow us to offer that course. And then what we can do is work with students to get that dual credit opportunity for the students moving forward.
Is there a cost to that program?
There is a cost to that program, yes, ma'am.
And what, do you know what that?
Their grant funding just ran out, and so now there is a student cost that is associated with that. I'm going to have to go back and check to get the exact numbers. I'll do that for you.
All right. That's okay. I just.
And I don't know, I'm sorry if Joe asked this, but how did you find out, you said about polling or something, but how do you find out the student interest?
It's a campus decision in regard, first of all, it's looking at, as Dr. Maxwell said, the teacher training piece, if there is a teacher that is qualified to do that.
Right.
And a lot of the teachers, particularly in that math and high-level math class, would begin to recruit kids at that point for those particular classes. Algebra is actually one of the new classes that On-Ramps is also moving forward on. The other classes that we have offered have been the traditional classes that On-Ramps has, that UT has offered with this program.
And it is a college level course.
That's the dual enrollment class, then you have dual credit class, and then AP classes, so lots of opportunity.
They can almost graduate college by the time they get out.
Can we get a report as to whether it does show involvement enough to have the course?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you.
Next item, we ask the board to approve the service provider agreement between Fort Bend Regional Council on Substance Abuse and Lamar for campus programming during the 2019-2020 school year. The next item, we ask the board to approve the service provider agreement between Avail Solutions and Lamar CISD for crisis hotline services during 2019-2020.
How do we verify that the people that are actually on the lines are qualified?
So that's
on
the
our
agreement.
part?
So that's the agreement that Avail has to prove to Lamar CISD that all of the people they hire have all the credentials to meet the standards of being a qualified mental health professional. And so they can share all that information with us to ensure that those are the people they're staffing on those phone lines.
Anytime they have a change of staff and everything, they're required to let
They
you
have
know.
to have all that proof.
Next item, we ask the board to ratify financial investment. The next item, we ask the board to approve budget amendment request. The next item, we ask the board to approve a resolution regarding the closure of schools on Friday, May 10th, and authorize the payment of employees. This is for the day that missed, and the board has to approve this so that we're not in an issue of a gift of public funds.
We're now turning on 98.
What I can't remember now. Was it the day after it flooded also? We still had some people still flooded in that couldn't get to school. Or was that the day before?
Day before. But this only covers where you have to.
I'll wait.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right.
I remember Harvey.
All right. Okay.
Ms. Kaminsky, did you have a question of something earlier?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was a little slow. On page 94 and 95, under budget changes.
Okay.
On the fourth budget change is to pay staff for extended school year. Are
Under-
these for the students, on page 94?
Is that under special ed?
Under special ed.
Okay.
Where the bottom
94.
line is 120,890.
Yes,
Um,
extended school year.
This is a request from our special education department. They were able to use grant money to pay for some nursing contracts, so that freed up some general fund money, and so they want to use those funds for the extended school year program in the summer.
So did they take anything away from that guidance in counseling?
No.
They just moved available funds that were freed up because some contracts were being able to be paid from different federal funds.
From the grants?
Yes.
Okay. Then,
Yeah, the grants covered it, so really.
They had budgeted for it in the general fund. They were able to pay for it over here, so they were able to free up this money to use for end of extended school year.
then on page 95, would you explain the very last one, 199-41, general administration, requesting amendment to the budget to pay claims administration expenses?
We hire a consulting firm named MSB, and they process the SHARS claims for us, and in return for their services, they get a 6% fee. We recently received a claim for prior year services. It was a settlement, so it was a large claim, which consumed most of the budget for this year. So we're supplementing the budget for the fees payments because we are still filing claims, and we will be through August. And so we estimated how much money we would need for that 6% fee going forward through the end of the year. And so that's the 100,000.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I have one question while we're going back to this one. On the guidance and counseling, 20,000, so can that be used for compensation for adding counselors or no?
Was for the 20,000 was for assessment and an assessment contract, so it was not for salaries, it was for fees for assessments to be done, and that was reclassed to the grant.
Okay, thanks.
The next item is a discussion and possible action on request for 2019 Historic Site Exemption qualification for Darcy Yoder.
I had a couple of questions on this. I don't remember seeing this one before. Is there?
It's a new one. Yeah.
And yet, have we approved this one before? I don't remember.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, and it is just a resident, it's not got a business and a residency there?
No, there's no business. It is a historic site.
Okay.
There is someone living there, so it is actually being used as a residence. It does have a homestead exemption and an over 65 exemption on it right now. And the $1,978 that's shown under the estimated amount of tax relief is actually a freeze amount. And that's been in place for years. If they didn't have frozen taxes right now, they would be paying about $5,400. So.
Okay, all right. So they're already getting kind of there. Okay, but it's not one I remember seeing before that we might have.
I believe it was brought to the board in 2017.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Oh, you have a question?
I have a question. On page 100, the second page of the application that they completed, it says, has a property been designated historically, archaeologically significant site? There's two questions like that, and it says they checked yes. Did they attach copies of the documents for those designations?
I would have to go back and check. Let me see what I've got here, just a minute. They do not have to submit those, but I actually do have the State of Texas Historical Commission's designation. Is that the form you're requesting or wondering about?
I just wanted to know, because it says, it doesn't look like in the application like it's optional. It says, if yes, attach copies of documents reflecting designation. And so I was just curious if they actually attached the documents.
Right, and the application that is in here is really the one that goes to the Fort Bend Central Appraisal District, so it's not our application. So they would have to submit this to the CAD.
Okay, so what did they submit to us?
They just gave us everything that they gave the CAD as well. They don't always. I'm just saying that those are the things that are required by the CAD, and typically they send us the same thing that they send them.
Okay.
And again, it is discussion and possible action, so. Do you want to request it? Yeah.
I don't think in all the years I've been on the board, though, there's any criteria for, or guidelines as to what do we look at, comparing this to, I know we reviewed someone some months ago. So
right.
How it balances, I don't think that we've ever been shown how to exactly look at this in a fair way. Are there any guidelines for us as a board?
I'm not aware of any.
It's just a decision.
It's just.
I looked up, and honestly, this is getting into discussion, I looked up the board policy, CCG local, and it said in there that we may grant tax relief to them if it is a charitable organization or a nonprofit, but this doesn't appear to be either.
It's not.
So
So
that's what I was looking for, is something specific.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item will be the board will designate someone that's attending the TASA, TASB conference as a delegate as well as an alternate.
And this is starts September 21st. And again, Ms. Kaminsky and I have done it in the past, and it's very interesting, so.
Are you designating somebody tonight?
No, we'll be giving, but I'm just giving you the information, and it's down here. On Thursday night, we will fill those names in of who we nominate, let me know.
Yeah, Joy looks very interested.
If you ask a question, you're going, okay.
Yeah, but it is a very interesting.
I think Joy's going to be going to Foshan,
It's very
China.
Yes, sign me up for China and Taiwan.
You never know what's going to happen at the convention. I've been doing it for years.
It's a good experience.
Yes.
I'm happy to go.
The next item, we ask the board to approve Charlie Calcamy surveying for professional topography surveying services for Trailer Stadium press box in the amount of $11,000.
I guess I missed this. Are we tearing down the old one?
Yes, sir. That was in the bond.
Part of the 2017.
It's going to have an elevator. It's going to have an elevator and everything.
The next item, we ask the board to
Oh,
approve.
you have a question about it?
I was discussing right before the meeting, I had several questions on a lot of these, and so for time's sake, I just was wondering how the bidding processes go, and like for some of them, we just approve them, some of them we have to go out and do formal bidding, and so I asked Mr. McKeever if I could just have a little meeting with him to go over how that process works, and so instead of asking about every single one.
And a lot of these, and just briefly, a lot of these for surveying services, for geotech engineering services, when it entails a professional engineer sealed person to do this, it's a professional service, and we cannot bid those things out by law. We have to just go to and look at qualifications or past history, and we go and deal with them on their ability and quality of doing it. You can't bid price for professional services. So that's what these are. The surveying is a professional service. The geotech engineering studies are a professional service.
But we still have to choose who we're going to use,
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
So what's that, I guess the process of that, making sure that's a fair process, that kind of thing?
There's two ways of doing it: past history, dealing with the district, or RFQs. And you can go out and do an RFQ and get different ones that way. We have used these firms because they're local firms. We've used them for a long time, and they know our district. They know how we do things. And
I'll still
yes, ma'am.
touch with you.
No problem.
The next item, we ask the board to approve geotechnical study for Trailer Stadium press box in the amount of $3,600.
I've got a question. I didn't want to jump ahead of Dr. Randall, so I waited until he got to that.
All right.
So on number 6, and the one you were just talking about, we're paying $1,500 for them to do underground surveying, but on number 7, the one we're talking about now, they're going to call Texas 811 to locate those services. Do I not understand that correctly, or do I?
For number 7?
Yes.
Number 7 is actually a geotechnical studies where they take core samples of the dirt underneath the system, underneath where the press box is going. And that determines how the engineers are going to build the foundation to support the structure that they're going to build. The 811 is just telling them where they're about to dig, there may be something under there. It's two different things.
Okay. The next item is that the board approve Urbish for the serving lines at George Junior High School in the amount of $9,408. The next item, we ask the board to approve Urbish for the serving lines at Terry High School in the amount of $16,300. The next item, we ask the board to approve TAG Communications for the data installation for the point-of-sale location in the new serving lines at Terry and George Junior High School in the amount of $2,335. The next item, we ask the board to approve Urbish to install the electrical needs needed for installation of our LOAT labs at Lamar Consolidated High School, Foster, Terry, in the amount of $2,767. And you all had, a couple of folks had questions about the LOAT labs, so they're going to show you a quick video. Maybe.
We're going to go into our Spanish time, so we're going to do 1, 2, 3. No inglés. Ok, vamos a empezar. Este grupo va a ser grupo A, ustedes van a ser grupo B.
Utiliza a cambiar, a mejorar personas en la sociedad.
Yo soy de los Estados Unidos.
Hola, me llamo Wesley.
¿Y tú?
¿De dónde?
And we felt like that was a little bit better than saying that it comes down out of this and that.
You were thinking they were just coming through the tiles, didn't you? Like manifest.
The next item, we ask the board to approve Irvish for the graphic arts department in the new space for space in the service center in the amount of $44,440. The next item, we ask the board to approve the proposal for Phil's Plumbing for the serving lines at George Junior High School in the amount of $25,269.51.
Have we used this company before?
Phil's Plumbing?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. That's actually a contract, annual contract that the Maintenance and Operation Office uses, and so we piggybacked off of that for these serving lines.
Next item, we ask the board to approve the proposal for Phil's Plumbing for Terry in the amount of $24,704.91. And then we ask that the Board of Trustees approve Terracon for material testing for the Foster High School athletic improvements in the amount of $15,980. The next item, we ask the board to approve Traffic Engineers, Inc. for the traffic study of the Alternative Learning Center additions and renovations in the amount of $12,000. The next item, we ask the board to approve Terracon for the geotechnical study for the Alternative Learning Center in the amount of $6,500. Next item, we ask the board to approve Charlie Calcamise for professional topography surveying services for the Alternative Learning Center in the amount of $8,000. The next item, we ask the board to approve Jamel and Smith for the replacement of the exterior door at Terry High School Band Hall in the amount of $10,371.
Yep. They didn't do it right.
Yes, sir.
How long ago are we talking about that was replaced?
18 months.
You said
about
18 months
12,
ago.
18 months? No warranty involved in that work?
And we got a lot of the money back.
We're still pursuing the original contractor surety on that, but they're not being very responsive. So we've got to get this door replaced before band practice starts in August and before school starts, and because there's no board meeting in July.
You said that was a safety issue.
It's a life safety, yes, ma'am.
The next item, we ask the board to approve the deductive change order number 3 in the amount of $1,612 and final payment of $66,891.29 to Microintegrations for the installation of district-wide access controls. The next item, we ask the board to approve final payment of $46,342.50 to RGO Roofing and Construction for the construction of the roof replacement project. The next item, we ask the board to approve CenterPoint electric easement at Culver Elementary and authorize the board president to execute the agreement. Next item, we ask the board to approve the capacity agreement rate order and connection fees to Fort Bend County MUD number 182 for Terracon Elementary in the amount of $320,913.34.
Tamaron. You said Terracon. Tamaron.
Tamaron, okay.
I know all the words are running together.
Oh.
Thank you.
It is Tamaron.
Yeah, we got it.
Thank you for taking care of me. All right. The next item, we ask the board to approve service agreement and capital recovery fees to Fort Bend County Municipal Utility District MUD 162 to Randall High and Wright Junior High School Complex in the amount of $879,790.72.
And we were told at our meeting today that was a bargain, so.
All right, the next item is, that's the board to approve the purchase of network telephone hardware, telephone license and installation and configuration services in the amount of $1,016,165. The total includes hardware and licenses from Datavox in the amount of $815,650.49. Services from Red River in the amount of $108,135.51 and a 10% contingency of $92,379.
Numbers are getting bigger and bigger. Is that it?
Madam President, those are the action items.
Did we have any audience patrons tonight? No. None. Okay, so we need to move forward to the information items. And we did have a correction.
We had a correction on page 216, the bottom page where it says Stephanie McElroy Westendorf, that's actually is Navarro. And because it is the entire red track, and thank you, Madam President, for pointing that out to us.
Okay. I know you had flips, principals.
The next item is appointment of board committees.
I hope everybody's okay.
The next item is local policy update 112, and board members, you receive this as first reading. You will take no action on this at this board meeting, but at the next board meeting, it will come back as an action item for the board to take action. Our policy requires first reading, and then at the next meeting, you take action. And now, are we doing budget workshop tonight or Thursday? Tonight?
Whichever you want to do.
Board members, are you all ready, or you want to?
Are y'all on overload, or do you want to start hearing this?
We could hear it. I have a question about, if I can ask a question. For the information items, can I ask a question on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure. Okay. So for on page 356, it's talking about the projects funded by the 2011 available
okay.
bonds.
You skipped ahead, okay.
Oh, yeah, way ahead, sorry. Oh, are we going through all the information? Oh, we are? Okay.
Yeah.
I can wait.
Okay. But you can.
I didn't know that we were going through all the information on it.
Well, we were trying to decide, do you wish to go ahead and go? That's fine with me.
We have the resolution.
All right, well, let's go.
Okay.
Let's knock it out.
Let them get their feet wet here.
They'll remain. All right, good evening. I'm going to try to present the first budget workshop for the 2019-20 school year and fiscal year. Typically, in the first workshop, I discuss the different types of revenue in a little more detail than in follow-up meetings. projected totals for both revenues and expenditures, and also give you some of the building blocks. The three budgets that require board approval are the general fund budget, debt service fund budget, and the child nutrition fund budget. Starting with the general fund, I'll be presenting revenue projections for 1920. There's three categories of revenue in the general fund: local revenue, state revenue, and a small portion of federal revenue. In the local category, property taxes by far make up the largest category of local revenues. And in the state revenue area, of course, enrollment, attendance, and local tax effort all play a big part in the amount of funding we get. We have about 2% of our general fund attributable to federal revenue. And you've heard us mention the Medicaid programs, and those are the sources, the two largest sources of federal money that are actually reported in the general fund. A little bit more detail about property taxes. The current year levy is estimated based on preliminary values that we get from the Fort Bend Central Appraisal District. We get reports periodically, probably about twice a month, starting in about April. And then we apply a discount factor because we know that there's going to be challenges and protests through tax season, and so we're going to lose value, and of course our levy will be impacted by those protests. And then when we actually calculate the estimated levy, we use a 98.5% collection rate because there is a small amount of taxes each year that are not collected or collectible. And we engaged a delinquent and tax attorney to help us with that. We also budget delinquent taxes and penalties and interest on tax collections in addition to the current year levy. As you are aware, House Bill 3 was passed recently, and there's a whole lot of interpretations that are still being made. We have done our best in this first blush to try to reflect what we think we will receive, what our compressed tax rate will be, and try to determine the impact of the legislation on our district. A lot of the numbers, as interpretations are made and as data changes, all the numbers will change as well because it has a ripple effect through everything. We're expecting that our compressed tax rate for the M&O side will be 97 cents per $100 valuation. In the area of other local revenues, we also generate investment earnings, facility rental proceeds, athletic revenues, and then other miscellaneous revenues. The projected total for the year is $164.455 million, and that's 53.3% of total revenues that are reported specifically in the general fund. Based on a June 10th report, our property values for this year are up approximately 5.39% over last year. And then just to give you an idea of the value growth over the last few years, last year's growth rate was 3.65%, and the year prior to that it was 5.5% roughly. And you'll see that the increases were declining from 2015 in the several years back, and now they're starting to grow at a faster rate again. We adjust, as I said earlier, we adjust for protests. We're using 95.5% of the value that the CAD is giving us. And we also have $1.166 billion in values right now that are under review. Another thing to be aware of is the values that are determined by the CAD are also monitored by the Controller's Office. And if the values aren't within the targeted range, then there's oversight activities that happen between the Controller's Office and the CAD. Our preliminary net taxable values, adjusted for over 65 taxpayers and disabled persons freeze, total $15.924 billion this year. We're using $15.128 billion. That's applying that discount factor of 95.5%. Current year taxes on those values are estimated at $161.955 million. And we'll update values, of course, with each workshop. Our delinquent taxes are estimated at $1.6 million, and then $900,000 for penalties and interest. So total taxes in the budget are $164.455 million. So this is a quick look at how we calculate the tax revenue or the tax levy. This is just the part that's related to the M&O fund. So on the left-hand side, you'll see what we adopted at this time last year, 2018-19. Our values were at $14.354 billion roughly. This year, we're looking at $15.128 billion. You'll see the tax rate for the 2018 tax year and the 2018-19 school or fiscal year was $1.06. So we're going from $1.06 to 97 cents. The $1.06, if you'll recall, included 2 cents that we were able to assess or access due to Hurricane Harvey and some of the tax code regulations. We were capped at $1.04. We were able to add another 2 cents for 1 year under the disaster provisions. But now we'll have to, we would have, under current law, even if we wouldn't have had House Bill 3, we would have dropped back to $1.04 this year for 1920. Dropping down, you'll see the amount of frozen taxes. That's actually the frozen tax amount. And then down lower, you'll see the 97.5% collection rate that I talked about. And then at the very bottom right, you'll see the $161.955 million. That's the net M&O tax levy. With respect to state revenues, the largest category is from the Foundation School Program and the Available School Fund. And then the next piece is TRS on behalf payments, and we're budgeting $13 million. That number will be adjusted by the time we adopt the budget, but there's it really has no impact on the bottom line of our budget. It's really a paper entry. We're required to reflect on the district's books the contributions the state makes to our employees' accounts at TRS, their pension accounts. So we have to show a revenue and an expense of the same amount. So, like I say, it doesn't impact the bottom line, but we have to estimate what that number is. Then there's other miscellaneous grants, and the projected total of state revenues in the general fund are $138.970 million, or 45.1% of total general fund revenues. As I said earlier, in the general fund, we also report a minor amount of federal revenues, indirect cost reimbursements, Medicaid, and then some ROTC reimbursements. So the projected total is $4.925 million, or 1.6% of the total revenue in the general fund. So here is a snapshot of all the revenues that we're looking at this point in time, totaling $308,349,614, so right at $308.35 million. A little bit about how we go about preparing your budget each year. In January through May, we determine and distribute all the allocations to the campuses. And then the departments also prepare the amounts of funding they need for their various programs. Those amounts are keyed into our budget program and then reconciled to make sure that what we have distributed out actually is what has been keyed in. So we do a reconciliation process. And then in this time frame, June and July, we look at everything that's been keyed in plus some special budgets, salary projections, and then start refining, a refinement process. In August, we do a final review of all three of the budgets that are required to be adopted by the board. We start discussions of the two-part tax rate, have a budget hearing, and then you adopt the budget and the tax rate. Some of the building blocks in the general fund, personnel and benefits typically represent about 85% of the general fund budget. Most of the personnel unit and salary allocations are made centrally, meaning the financial services and human resources departments work together with Dr. Randall to determine what units are necessary, look at staffing guidelines. The cabinet's also involved in some of the decisions, and those are refined throughout the process. We also manage the benefits for the district employees centrally. We have a self-funded health plan and workers' comp plan. We have many allocations based on per pupil amounts. For instance, we have a printing allocation of $3.50 per student, and those are distributed directly to the campuses. Basic allotments per student, you'll see there range from $110 per student down to $70 in the elementary schools. And then in addition to the per student allocations for supplies and materials, we also allocate bus trip allocations, administrative assistant overtime. There's an allocation for band instrument repairs and parts, student travel, and then several other supplemental funding elements that you'll see there, including for special ed, GT, pre-K, bilingual, and all the special programs. Some of the big ticket items, of course, salary and benefits. Salaries are right at $220 million of the total. And of course, they're subject to change as we fill positions and employees leave, and as is typical this time of year. In this budget, we also have salary increases projected, and we feel like we have interpreted the House Bill 3 requirements, and we've accordingly included raises for those provisions. Right now, the total we have included for raises are $12.285 million, and it's an average of approximately 5% for teachers and a 3% of midpoint for all other employees. I'm going to discuss a little bit about the House Bill 3 requirements on the next slide. In the benefits and allowances area, we've budgeted $47.65 million, including that $13 million in TRS on behalf. And then we also have $5.65 million to relieve a prior year deficit in the health plan, as well as increase the current year budget for the health plan to cover increased costs and mainly in $4 million of it is for increased costs. In the area of utilities, we have $8.5 million budgeted. Fuel, $1.68 million. In technology, a little over $5 million. Our property and casualty insurance is at $1.65 million. And then our CAD and tax collection fees, which is the contract we have with the county for collecting our taxes, totaling $1.775 million. We have new classroom startup funds of about $500,000 in the budget. Now, under the mandated compensation increases, House Bill 3 required compensation increases, and that's different from just salary increases, which would be cash. In their definition of compensation increases, you can include salary, which would be cash payments, plus benefits and allowances and things like that. You've probably heard that we are required to give raises in the amount of 30% of the gain between old law and new law. And so this slide just gives you a calculation of that 30% requirement. And this is, of course, as of today. When any of the data changes, these numbers will change also. So this is just a rough idea to show you where the number comes from. So what we had to do is look at the 18-19, which is this current year's revenue per ADA, which is your number of students in average daily attendance. So right now, we're generating in the 18-19 school year roughly $8,384 per student. In the calculations right now for 19-20, we'll be generating about $86.38. And so the difference in that is $254 roughly. We're projecting that we'll have 33,000 kids in ADA in the 19-20 school year. So when you multiply those two, you get about $8.392 million. It's 30% of that we're required to give in salary raises, and they define who these raises should go to. 75% of that $2.517 million must go to full-time teachers, librarians, counselors, and nurses, prioritizing those with over 5 years experience. And so that amount is about $1.888 million. And then 25% of the 30% has to go to full-time employees other than administrators. So that amount is roughly $629,000. So that's the breakdown of the requirements. The raises that we're including are way in excess of that. So we've definitely met this. So in law, there's been no individual amount given under House Bill 3. You know, at one point in time, there was a 5,000 number. No individual number like that actually made it into law. It was just the 30% rule. All right. That being said, here is the snapshot of the expenditure budget. $316,198,498. And as you see in the 6100s, those are all your payroll and benefit costs, and they total about $267.452 million. And then the next largest category, of course, is your professional and contracted services at roughly $27.5 million. Comparing the two, on the next slide, we're about $7.8 million short at this point, but that's typical for this time of year. This is when we start going back through all the revenue categories to see if we might be able to adjust ADA numbers or things like that based on data as it comes in. Same thing on the expenditure side. We sometimes can find areas to cut between now and August. So this is just the first draft. It's been worse than this. All right. Any questions on the general fund? That was a tough one. Okay. Going on to debt service. Again, you have a two-part tax rate. One part has to do with the M&O, the general fund, and then the other part has to do with the debt service fund. So you have an interest and sinking portion of the tax rate. If you look at the right side of this slide, you'll see what the exact calculation we went through on the M&O side. Using the same values, you'll see that in the current year, in 2018-19, we have a tax rate of 33 cents. We wanted to keep a level tax rate in 18-19 of $1.39. So when we went from $1.04 to $1.06 on the M&O side, we dropped our INS tax rate by 2 cents and went from 35 cents to 33 cents, so that we would stay at $1.39 between 17-18 and 18-19. So now with tax rate compression, our tax rate would be the 97 cents I mentioned earlier, plus we're going back to the 35-cent rate for INS, because we were only able to drop to 33 cents for a year, basically. So at 35 cents, we'll generate roughly $58.437 million in the current year levy. All of our revenue sources combined in the debt service fund are $77.504 million, mainly being the property taxes of the $58.437 million. Plus, of course, we have delinquent taxes and penalty and interest that we budget in that fund as well, of $550,000. We have accrued interest and accrued capitalized interest, and then current interest earnings of about $17.3 million. And then also, we're receiving state aid to support debt service of $1.2 million. On the expenditure side, our total budget is $74.396 million, with roughly $74.3 million being for principal and interest, and then almost $100,000 for paying agent fees. As I discussed, our INS tax rate right now is projected to be 35 cents. The final recommendation, though, will depend on values. Values are typically certified in July by the CAD. Any questions on debt service? Okay. As I mentioned earlier, we have a two-part tax rate. This year, the 2018 tax rate was $1.06 for M&O and 33 cents for INS. This next year, due to House Bill 3 and the tax relief, we'll be going to a 97-cent M&O rate at this point and 35 cents interest and sinking, which would be a total rate of $1.32. So we would go from $1.39 to $1.32. Truth and taxation requirements are going to change as well. We don't really have all the rules and regs on that yet, but we do know that what was formerly the rollback rate is now called the voter approval rate. And our cap for M&O is the 97 cents under this voter approval rate. We will have a meeting on August 1st that will be to approve the date that we will meet to discuss the budget and the tax rate, and also vote on a proposed tax rate that we'll put in our publications. We have a lot of truth and taxation requirements, deadlines, things that have to be published in the newspaper and things like that. So that's why we have the August 1st meeting. All right, moving on to child nutrition. That's another budget that's self-supporting. We have user fees and federal funds mainly. Our total estimate for the budget this year is $15.79 million. And as you see there, the revenues are from breakfast and lunch sales and also federal reimbursements. And we have your typical costs: salaries, benefits, food costs, supplies, capital. And to give you a snapshot of that, payroll and benefits are $6,750,000. And the next biggest category is the 8.6 for supplies and material. And you'll see the total of $15,793,128. That's it. Short and sweet.
And that's her first pass at this. Right.
First pass. It's always nice to have that first one behind you, though.
Any questions, comments? Are you exhausted? I am. You did all the work.
I had help, though.
I know. So, in your estimated opinion, how much change do you think will happen over the next 4 to 6 weeks?
That's a tough question to answer.
I know.
I know we will be tweaking things to balance, because we try to present you with a balanced budget. So we're going to be working working real hard on the expenditure side. Of course, there's going to be a lot of interpretations released and changes and challenges with House Bill 3, but we'll try to provide you with information along the way if there's anything large that happens. Until August 1st.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does the board have any questions on the tax collection report? Payment for construction projects? 2014 or 2017 bond? I think we had a question that was answered regarding available funds. And you have a copy of the school resource division update.
I'd just like to say thank you for specifying those schools. Sure. That was interesting to see where we may have to look on.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And the next item?
You had a question though on 356. I think, did we skip that?
Yes, are we there?
Did we skip it?
I just wanted to know what, for the 2011 bond, we're still using up those funds. How much we have left, what page am I on now, 365?
356.
356.
Yeah, we really worked hard. Well, it says on here.
I was just curious how much we have left.
It says at the bottom, doesn't it?
Does it?
6.1.
Well, I thought that was for these projects.
Well, that's correct.
Yeah.
And actually,
Past that.
Thursday night, one of the board agenda items is for the final payment of the access control project, and then all these have been done.
Okay, gotcha. And then it's
finished.
It's complete, finished. All right, thank you.
Okay, so, sorry. Just going back.
That's all right. And then you have the transportation update.
And I saw buses with signs on them, looking for bus drivers. They're out there.
I had just a simple question, I think, on the vans. What are those used for?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Oh, well, we have that home to school routes, the regular special ed displaced, and then it says van.
The vans?
Yeah.
We use those in cases where we have some students, some of our homeless, some of the displaced students that we go, out of district and have to either transport those kids, or in some cases, they're special needs students that are traveling a long distance, in one or two that are traveling across the district. We'll
Basically,
use
they're
them.
out of their regular
Correct.
schedule. Okay. And I just want to say thank you to those two, Roy, I guess I'll say that
Roy and Molly.
Thursday, yeah, for going to that safety rodeo.
Yeah, they did great. That was our first time, apparently in several years, that we've had folks compete, and they did real well.
Thank you.
There's nothing for closed session tonight. We will have an item on Thursday.
All right, so if there's any other questions, if not, we are adjourned at 8:22.